Well, welcome to the Our Revolution Helena TV program here on Helena Civic TV. My name is Frank Kromkowski. I'm one of the members of Our Revolution Helena, which is an organization that was inspired by Bernie Sanders and really began as Helena for Bernie Sanders back in 2015, and then morphed into Our Revolution Helena. But being inspired by the same concern for economic justice and restoration of democracy in the United States and for equality for all, food for all, health care for all things that seem like a distant dream in so many ways. Today our guests are two people who are very, very active in the movement to bring about a better Montana and a better United States. And they represent two organizations, one of which has been around really for almost 20 years, 18 years, Montana Women Vote, and the other is a new organization called Big Sky 55. So Ella Smith is the program director for Montana Women Vote, and Molly Moody is the director of Big Sky 55. And I'm going to ask each of them to tell us a little bit about their organization, starting with Ella, and then since this is the legislative session, we're going to take a look at some of the issues that are happening in the legislature and the issues in the larger picture of what's happening. So Ella, if you could tell us a little bit about Montana Women Vote and what your role is in that.
Sure. Montana Women Vote works to engage low-income women and their allies in the civic and democratic process through leadership development, policy advocacy, and voter engagement. And economic justice is it's where most of the work that we do lives. And so I appreciate the invitation to speak with you today.
Well, thank you very much for coming. And Molly, tell us a little bit about yourself and about Big Sky 55 Plus.
Sure, thanks Frank for having me. We are a new organization we just launched last year of April of 2018, and we are setting out to engage Montanans 55 and older to advocate for progressive policies such as healthcare and economic security for all. We felt that there was an immediate need to take back Montana and the country, and so we put together a group of seasoned politicos that have done lots of work to be able to communicate with this demographic, which now makes up about 54% of the voters, 55 and older, and we really want to engage that group to continue to vote and to tap into their expertise as well as we set out to advocate on these progressive policies.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, Ella, as I said, we're here on January 22nd, and the legislature has been in session for almost more than 2 weeks now. And what is your organization looking at in the legislature? What are your priorities? And what would you like our listeners to know about that work and legislative actions?
Thanks, Frank. In our policy advocacy work, we focus on a number of different things that disproportionately impact low-income women across the state, including the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women, including paid family leave, and a number of issues that affect primarily low-income women and their allies, as well as a bit of work on LGBTQ plus advocacy and protecting that group, and a few other things. But our main focus this legislative session will be working on Medicaid expansion, which was passed in 2015 in the state of Montana. The legislature expanded Medicaid, but they set an expiration date of July of 2019. So that program will expire this year, kicking nearly 100,000 people off of their health insurance, which is about 1 in 10 Montanans, if the legislature doesn't take action this session. So our major organizing push will be pushing legislators to fully fund that program without harmful changes that would shrink the number of people eligible. And if you're interested in participating in that organizing work, we do have a phone bank on the 23rd, which is Wednesday, and potentially you're hearing this after that, but you can email Ella at montanawomenvote.org. for any information about phone banking on Medicaid expansion.
And if somebody wants to find out more about Medicaid expansion, they can also go to your websites and things like that?
Yep, our websites, or our Facebook page, or the Montana Budget and Policy Center also has a lot of really important, valuable information about all the wonderful benefits that Medicaid expansion has provided to the state of Montana since it was passed in 2015, all of the money saved to the general fund and to taxpayers, the amount of people who have been able to gain access to work or work more hours a week than they were able to do before, and a lot of really important localized information about the impact to various counties, the impact on reservations, and the impact in a variety of different communities across the state, which have all been positive benefits.
Yeah. Well, I can remember back in 2015 being in the gallery looking down as the Medicaid Expansion Health Act in 2015 passed by one vote. And that was an amazing thing that it happened, and there was one Republican vote after a big struggle to even get a vote, to get any vote whatsoever on that. Does it look like there's going to be more cooperation in getting this passed this time?
Well, Senator or Representative Mary Cafaro has introduced a bill on behalf of the Democratic caucus to lift the sunset and continue the Medicaid expansion program without limitations. There is a group of legislators who are interested in shrinking the number of people who are eligible for this program. And that could include a number of dangerous barriers, either to access or qualification for Medicaid expansion, or just prohibitive reporting requirements that would cause people who potentially have families and work 3 jobs to have to do very regular reporting about how many hours a week they might be working, or asset reporting, or all kinds of things. And we believe that the intent there is to shrink the number of people who gain Medicaid expansion. And we believe that that is antithetical to Montana values.
As do the members of our Revolution Helena. We have a legislative action priority list, and health care for all as a right is one of our planks. And so the fact that there are so many people in Montana who may lose their health care if this is not passed, and maybe 30 million people across the country who don't have health care coverage or health care insurance, or maybe they have insurance but not really good health care, is really crucial to us too. So I'm sure that all of our Revolution Helena members will be interested in working with Montana Women Vote to help change whatever minds need to be changed to get this passed, not just by one vote. Yeah.
Some of the policies that have been mentioned have been instituted recently in the state of Arkansas, and due to those policy changes, over 17,000 people have lost health insurance, and they haven't even fully implemented those changes yet, so that number continues to climb, and we just believe that we can't let that happen in the state of Montana.
So the struggle really is a crucial one now. Now, Molly, Big Sky 55 Plus is an organization that sounds like it's fighting for a lot of the things that we've been talking about here, and additional issues as well. What are the kinds of things that you're now focusing in on, say either in the Montana legislature or in the Congress, that you might want to talk about?
Sure. Thank you so much, Frank. And yes, and we are very passionate about making sure that Medicaid expansion is preserved and that the reauthorization happens and the sunset is removed. So we look at things, we are doing advocacy work on a federal and state and local level. So we are engaging in to make sure that Medicaid expansion is expanded as well, and helping to add value to all the great groups that are working on it, like Montana Women Vote, to be able to do that. A lot of us were very instrumental, myself included, in working on passing the Affordable Care Act back 10 years ago. When that happened, we also were able to permanently reauthorize the Indian Healthcare Improvement Act during that fight, which was great. So a lot of what we're doing on a federal level is trying to preserve the good things that the ACA brought to us. One of the things that just happened, so we'll do federal advocacy, state advocacy, and then on a local level, we are statewide, and we, as an organization, would like to build strong bases in Billings and Great Falls, particularly, and all across the state. But federally, we're just looking at attacks daily on the ACA. Right now, there was a new rule change that the Trump administration is proposing right now to be able to remove the tax credits that people receive for their premiums. So it would have devastating effects going into 2020 when people want to go on the marketplace. We're also very concerned about the recent shutdown, the longest in history, and what it's doing to our communities. We have people on our reservations that have been working 2 months without pay. They have to keep their, when we have so many people dependent on federal resources over our state when it comes to all sorts of things, but thousands and thousands of people are affected by that. So we are encouraging people to speak out against the shutdown and call our senators. We know Senator Tester has been very vocal about ending the shutdown, so we're actually asking folks to call Senator Daines's office and demand an end to the shutdown. On a statewide level, we have decided on 3 different priorities of making sure to help with the Medicaid expansion effort and make sure we remove that sunset, as well as making sure we preserve the funding for the senior and long-term care budget. So we look to our great allies and expertise of the senior and long-term care community through the areas on aging and AARP, who are great partners in that. But we'd like to be able to preserve those budget items. One of the crucial things is also supporting a raise for caregivers who provide invaluable care to people at home and aging at home, as well as preserving our pension systems and our retirement security. So there's a lot of budget items to be preserved there, as well as making sure that we preserve health care for over 96,000 Montanans and without detrimental added waivers or requirements on those people. So it's very dire. There's also voting rights as another focus. There are attempts to take away protections and access we have for voting rights right now. There's a bill out to end same-day voter registration, which was a very instrumental piece of legislation that Montana Women Vote led back in the day about 18 years ago, which was wonderful to be part of. So those are kind of our priorities on a federal and state level, and then locally thinking on ways to make sure that our communities are provided for. So those are some of those priorities.
Well, I know that you have a Facebook page, Big Sky 55 Plus, so that people should go to that page. Then they can be led to your website as well from that page to
Absolutely.
keep up with the latest kinds of things that you're researching and studying and advocating for.
Yes.
And I think those websites are very well done, as is the Montana Women Vote. You can go there and find what you're looking for, and if you can't, there's some places there they say, contact such and such person, and they'll get back to you to find that out.
One thing I was going to add is that we do have an organizational platform we put together that lays out our policies on many different issues, from healthcare to economic security to retirement security, education, that people can reference. And so I just wanted to make sure people were aware of that as well, and get more information on that.
Yes, I was just looking at the titles of the various pieces of the platform. And it's very much like our Revolution Helena, in that you care about a variety of issues and not just vague kinds of things, but very specific kinds of things that amount to justice and fairness. And it's really discouraging to a lot of people to know that every day when you turn the news on, some kind of ridiculous thing is being announced that someone has just said or just proposed to do, or something that you thought no one would ever oppose is being opposed by someone. How do you keep up your spirits to continue your work?
Personally, I focus on some of the successes that we've been able to see in progressive policy areas in the state of Montana, and I know that I talk mostly about Medicaid expansion, but I think that that's one place where we've really risen above other states, including just the quality of coverage that people on Medicaid receive in Montana, which includes things like mental health and extra provisions for dental that are optional, which is something that doesn't necessarily exist in other states. So focusing on some of those successes and then working really hard to defend them, as well as, you know, some of the personal stories that come out through the work about how people's lives have been positively impacted through these things. And it's not always easy, but it helps me to keep fighting for these policies.
And how about you, Molly?
Absolutely. I think years of groundwork, I think it's the real people stories that keep me going. When I hear a story of someone's life changing because they got dental work or new teeth because of Medicaid expansion, is those things that pull on the heartstring and hit you in the gut, I think, that keep me going. And it's like, we've been working on healthcare reform for very long, but more people, I'm sure you've been working on it for longer than any of us, but you have to keep on pushing the boulder up the hill, a bit of Sisyphus, I think of when I'm doing the work, but it really is the resiliency and the strength of the people of Montana. And when I meet people on reservations who continue to work without a paycheck, or meet someone who finally was able to access dental or mental health care because of that, because of the efforts we've all collectively done. I think in Montana we do really work in solidarity because there's so little of us, and we do a lot with a little to really be leaders in these issues. So I think, being out in the field really helps keep my spirits up. And good folks like you.
Oh, thank you. You know, there are lots of really good people in our Revolution Helena, and we have been meeting, you might say, while everyone else has been doing other kinds of things, we have been meeting every 2 weeks, and quite often, even more often, ever since May 31st of 2015. And so we always have interesting guests to share their thoughts with us, and we do movies, films, and dialogue among each other. We also have a consensus process so that we don't have any one person running the show. I mean, I run this show, I guess, but I do not run our Revolution Helena. It's a group of wonderful men and women. We always have a man and a woman who are the co-facilitators of our meetings to reflect, basic equality. And if anyone in our audience is interested in coming to the next Our Revolution Helena show, said today is the 22nd, but we are meeting on January 24th, which is a Thursday night, 7 o'clock. We always meet over at Plymouth Congregational Church up on the corner of Winnie and Oaks, and then every 2 weeks. And then usually in the weeks between, we have some kind of educational event, whether it's a film or a book club or watching a video or participating in some kind of national live stream event. And so anyone who's interested in finding a way to get some of that spirit of saying we can keep engaged, come to our Revolution Helena meetings and get involved with Montana Women Vote and Big Sky 55. I can barely remember when I was 55, but I'm glad to have both of your organizations there. Is there anything else you'd like to mention just as we finish this last minute?
My only closing thought would be I love seeing the powerful gatherings of women that have been happening in the month of January every year since 2016. And I think marches are wonderful, and I would love to see some of that energy translated to direct, trackable voter contact, so that we're showing publicly our values, but then we're also pushing for our values in those really strategic, tangible ways. So as I said before, if you're interested in phone banking or other methods of direct voter engagement on these policy issues, ella@montanawomenvote.org.
Thank you, Ella. And Molly, how about you? And that last word?
Sure. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be on here and talk about the organization. One of the things I was going to also mention is that we are having a phone bank tonight in Billings at the First Church in Billings to also call folks in support of, to have people call their legislators in support of Medicaid expansion of Cavero's bill, the Keeping Montana Healthy Act. Also wanted to say federally we'll be working very hard to make sure that Social Security is preserved and also hopefully expanded to future generations. But thank you for this opportunity to be here.
Well, I want to thank both of you. You are two of my favorite people and great activists who are putting your lives and time on the line for causes that are so important. You know, basic justice, basic health care, basic security for everyone. And so I thank you for being who you are. And I thank all of our listeners for watching Our Revolution Helena. We'll be back with more guests and more interesting people to talk to about some of the crucial issues of our time. Thank you very much.